I know. So I know some things about Matic in general, but could you tell a couple of words? Where were you living at that time? So were you living in India, or where were you geographically?
So the Matic team is actually based out of Navi Mumbai in India, and currently a couple of our team members are based out of SF, but the major part of the team is actually based out of India.
Okay, okay. Generally, you know, the blockchain projects that have super high achievements and that have that shoot up very high, they do share some of the DNA, I'd say. So meaning that most, at least like most of the recent successful projects in this space, they do share what like French people call the je ne sais quoi. So they do have some ingredients that are necessary for success. So like our listeners are interested in a couple of things. So of course, I don't know how many of them invested in Matic or when somehow have a position in it at any moment of time. But like what I'm interested to hear, of course, is what is the conception of the project? What is maybe what led the team? If you can speak a couple of words about that, to come to envision such a, I would say that Matic is a futuristic project on Ethereum at least. So what do you say about that? What do you say about how it was conceived? What was the main goal that the guys and the team was setting for themselves?
Surely. So when our three co-founders, right, Jayanti, Anurag and Sandeep, when they started the company, they were actually making a product called Dagger, which tries to give real-time Ethereum notifications to developers. But as they were building this product, they figured out that there are more important problems in crypto to deal with. When I say more important, it's basically the user experience and the slow speed of the transactions and the higher cost, right? When there are a lot of transactions clogging the blockchain. So that is when we realized as a firm that we should actually try and tackle this problem first, right? So in case there is going to be mass adoption, first there needs to be scalability that needs to be achieved on the blockchain, right? That is how, that was the main motive behind actually going forward and implementing Plasma, right? So we started off with doing the minimum viable Plasma, the first implementation. And after that, what we've done is we've come and we've actually moved on to more viable Plasma as of now. So it's actually a little bit of, the development keeps on going, right? We try to tend to keep the more useful features and actually keep moving towards achieving our goal of scalability, right? And just to give the users or the viewers here, right, who are not aware about Matic, Matic is a layer 2 scalability solution. We use the Plasma framework for asset security, and we also have a decentralized layer of proof of stake validators who secure the network. Yeah. And currently the first platform that we're working on is Ethereum, and probably later on, once this is done, then we will probably move on to other blockchains as well. Yeah.
All right. So that was actually one of the questions. So Ethereum is known to be one of the oldest and the go-to network for many use cases, but it's not famous for its speed and efficiency, and this is what Matic aims to fix. Could you elaborate a bit more about the team's relation towards the Ethereum development community in general? So do you envision the project moving on to another blockchain completely in the future? So stop being an Ethereum sidechain, or is that not an immediate goal?
Sure. So as I mentioned earlier, right, the immediate goal is to help scale Ethereum, because we've been big time believers in the vision of Ethereum, and our team has always contributed to a lot of open source projects. For example, Dagger, right, which I mentioned earlier. It is a tool that helps developers obtain real-time notifications from the Ethereum blockchain. So they don't need to set up that engine themselves, and they can just subscribe to Dagger for their notifications. And apart from this, the team has also contributed to a lot of open source implementations, right? Let's say the Wallet Connect protocol. So our team keeps on contributing to these open source projects, and in general, like contributing to the development of the ecosystem as a whole. So I don't envision us moving to another blockchain sometime in the near future, but I think with respect to blockchain, you cannot really say anything specific or with certainty, because the ecosystem is moving at such a quick rate, and probably we don't know where we will be 2 years hence from now. But currently the main focus of the team is to actually go ahead and deploy the mainnet on Ethereum and ensure that we can actually achieve our goal of scaling Ethereum first. Yeah.
Okay, that's pretty clear. Thank you. Basically, the other networks are a possibility in this case. And yeah, you're right about the open source contributions are so incredibly important. So I know this kind of joke, which is only partly a joke, that many people in the Valley they actually use the number of their open source contributions as a dating talking point. So now suddenly how much code and what quality code you have contributed to open source is something that counts on your Tinder page or whatever. So yeah, I understand perfectly, and even much more so in the blockchain world. Okay, can you tell us I think the biggest milestones that you had before you'd go on the Binance Launchpad and after? So meaning how much time did it take the team to go through early concept like drawing on a napkin and onto the Binance Launchpad? How much time and how much effort exactly, and how many resources did that require?
Sure. So basically, Matic, when we were trying to raise funds, right, we've never actually been a white paper project. We always wanted to first release a minimum viable product and show it to our investors and the community before we actually even started going out. And with respect to Binance, it has been a very long process, because the due diligence that the Binance team puts into the project, that spans over, at least in our case, it spanned over many months, because the kind of details that they go in, and they probably track your progress over a number of months. So you can't just show them one state in the start, and because they go ahead and verify, because the process goes over months. So you actually have to show them progress. How has your code base progressed? How has your community progressed? What is your development effort in that particular area, right? So the kind of effort that really goes into it in terms of resources, I think most of the team was always working on developing the code, but to interact and probably go through creating the research reports and everything, I think a couple of team members were trying to contribute to that effort, including myself. Yeah.
Interestingly enough, like a very direct question, but it's also always interesting with the teams that go on Binance Launchpad. Were you actually expecting such a success of that got demonstrated in the token price or not? So what were the team hopes? Sort of, and were they exceeded or not?
So to be really honest, the team per se did not have any particular expectation from the price, because we have just been focused on actually developing first the product and shipping it out so that the maximum number of users and developers can be onboarded to the platform. It was a pleasant surprise, because the team is actually not very, how should I say it, we were not really active in promoting it. We did not do a lot of marketing before going on to Binance Launchpad. But that being said, I think the kind of trust that people showed in our progress and the kind of resultant, I think, how the market reacted to basically whatever the team was doing in terms of, let's say, being adopted. So Decentraland is going to be building their marketplace on top of Matic Network. I think these are some of the things that led to how the market reacted to the token price. And I think in terms of crypto projects, Matic is not just another project, right? Because there are very few teams which are supported by two of the most biggest players in the industry, right? So Binance and Coinbase, both of these exchanges are supporting Matic Network. So I think I don't know how many projects can actually claim that, but yeah, I think that goes a really long way in saying that the biggest believers in crypto are actually trusting and putting their faith in Matic. So yeah, that feels really good.
That's absolutely more. Well, I'm sure it does. What is also interesting is that like a tech team that of yours. So how do they marry the fact in their heads at least that most of the work that they're doing is quite independent of what is the price action, and is quite independent of what is happening on the exchange. So meaning that we know that most of the volume of any centralized exchanges are traders who, like, in most probability, they don't even know much about your product or project. So they trade your tokens, they buy in, they make the price go higher or they make it go lower. In their heads, so I understand it's hard to be completely uncoupled from the token price for the project. But in your heads, where do you place, like for example, you're doing on Ethereum, right? You're active in the blockchain space that is decentralized and so on. Where do you place a centralized exchange that uses a huge amount of users who know nothing about your project to pump its price? How does it go with, like, what's your connection to this? What the team members' connection to this?
So I think it's interesting that you mentioned this, because me personally, I've attended a couple of Binance meetups in the past week or so. So basically, I was there at the Binance meetup in Hyderabad in India, and then I also represented us at the Binance meetup in Moscow. So our goal is to actually go out and meet these people, right? Who you say that they're probably just trading and they don't know a lot about Matic, right? So that is the goal of the team inherently, to actually go out and meet the community, meet these traders per se, or probably even people who are not trading but who do not know about Matic, but they definitely want to get to know what we're doing, right? Because trading is actually just a smaller part of what this whole movement is all about, right? What actually matters is people should realize what are we trying to build and why is it important. In a sense, why is it actually important to scale blockchains in the first place, right? Because the goal of decentralization was not just to create a trading platform, right? It was to actually ensure that the power is given back to the users, right? And there is no central authority, or there is no central point of failure, right, that can take the whole system down. So we as a team really believe in actually going out to the community and creating awareness about it. That is the stance of the Matic team, and I think if you go out and reach out to any of the Matic team members, we would be happy to actually connect and narrate it to anyone as to why our journey is important and how we are actually contributing to taking the blockchain space, specifically Ethereum, to the next level, right, where we can actually see mass adoption. Currently, if you see in your phone, you won't be having any decentralized app, right? Because the ecosystem currently suffers from such a bad user experience, and also there is no scale achieved as of now, right? So that is what we wanted to target in the first place, to ensure that people can actually deploy meaningful applications on the blockchain, and also to ensure that crypto is not just an asset class and people are just trading it. We also want to create awareness so that more and more people come into the ecosystem, not just developers, but let's say product designers and people who can meaningfully contribute to the growth of the whole ecosystem. Yeah.
When you speak about mass adoption in general, and it's a term that gets used very often in our space, what do you target? So what period of time, and in your mind again, how long till we are on to the next stage? So I'm not speaking about like how long till we reach singularity right now. I'm just asking that in your own terms and in Matic terms, what are your midterm goals on a calendar? What year would that be?
So it's actually really difficult to say when there will be mass adoption. When I say mass adoption, it's like everyone who's probably listening to this conversation, right? They have a decentralized application installed on their phones, right? So we're not just talking about it in terms of something that will happen, but something that has actually happened, right? I think that is when we can really call crypto to be adopted by the masses. But that being said, it's actually difficult to put a timeline on it. Matic Network as a team, we are targeting the release of our mainnet by the end of this year. So that is when we expect a lot of applications to be running on the mainnet and supporting a lot of users. So that will be just a step towards actually realizing the goal of mass adoption. But that being said, our focus is to actually get more and more developers to build on Matic so that a lot of value can be created for the end users, because until and unless people find a decentralized application, right, a dApp that adds some value more over and above the current applications that they're using on their phone, that is the case that they will switch over to these applications, right? So the focus actually is to ensure that there are such use cases. And when I say that, I am completely cognizant of the fact that there might be use cases on the blockchain that we're not even aware of yet, and people are not even building them. But I think once we've realized some scale on these blockchains, I think slowly these use cases will start surfacing up, and we will actually come across the famed killer application of blockchains. Yeah.
Yeah, that's I completely agree with you here. So that's for sure. We almost certainly cannot see too far because a lot of new things are coming up every day. So there's this notion or like feeling in the market also that at least some of its I'd say veterans share that there is very little belief, I would say, in the newer and newer projects that are very low level, that are protocols that are coming up, because in a way that's suffocating the industry to let me try and put it into words. So what I mean is that there are quite some futuristic projects on the blockchain, right? So there are upcoming blockchains that are promising ultra high speeds and that are promising super performance. But what it does actually is that it would not allow for the next level of whatever you say apps or user experiences to develop, and most importantly, it would not allow for the projects to become actually either self-sustainable or just in general find the right business model as a startup. And that's very bad for the industry, because so what I'm saying is actually people used to sell the dream of being this very low level protocol for the things to be built on top of it, right? And some of them were earlier, like Ethereum, some were came much later, but they're all pretty much selling the same thing. Do you have a fear that if we continue building that, the next layers might never come, or you don't?
Okay, so basically there are a lot of protocols being built, I agree to that, but in some way I think that is necessary because we're very early in terms of blockchain adoption, right, and even blockchain development. So no one really knows as to where the ecosystem is heading, let's say even 2 years hence, right? But that being said, we don't believe in reinventing the wheel when we have something great that we can build upon, right? I think that has been the philosophy of Matic. And why I say that is because why we chose Ethereum to build our sidechain solution on was because we already have a very vibrant ecosystem of developers who are building a lot of solutions, right? And as you said, there are a lot of layer 1 solutions or newer blockchains that are coming in almost, let's say, every day, right? But the point is, what they don't have is the community which has already been built around Ethereum, right? They don't have the developer tools, they don't have the developer documentation, they probably won't have a lot of support services or protocols that are needed for a dApp to function, right? Because an application cannot function in isolation. It always needs some other, let's say, support services, let's say in terms of KYC or let's say in terms of liquidity, to actually provide the right kind of user experience for their users to actually come on board and use the application successfully, right? So we believe in actually in leveraging what should I say, in leveraging the potential of the current systems that have been deployed on Ethereum. And we also have plans to integrate some of these protocols onto Matic sidechains so that when developers come and build on Matic Network, they're provided with the best of both worlds, right? They're provided with the protocols which are deployed on Ethereum. At the same point in time, they have the scalability features that actually allow users to come in and use the network in real time without waiting or paying a lot of fees, right?
Yeah, cool. Another thing that like interests us deeply also at Paytomat is the retail payments, and that's one of the use cases that Matic mentions quite often, is that by boosting the transaction speed and the possible transaction number would give a new life to retail and to payments in crypto. There are a couple of hurdles that these payments need to jump before they go the mainstream that we all want. And namely that for example, people see their crypto as an investment vehicle and not as a form of payment. And only secondary to that is that the blockchains are slow and the people do not want to wait. So, for example, we have our own method of doing that, and which is, well, actually that's a proprietary solution, but we're working at Paytomat in retail for some time now, and we do have the options to pay with like a dozen of cryptos quite instantly. And I don't want to plug our service here, but if I was wondering if you are interested in, for example, you can also already use like BNB token to pay for the restaurants and cafe that we support in Latin America. How active is Matic in the field of retail? Would you like your token to be a form of payment on our network too? And do you envision like Matic, which is right now a utility token, going back and forth for the payments like the famous coffee payment and such?
Okay, so I'll actually take you through first of all, I'll take you through the use cases of the Matic token, right? Matic token is primarily intended to be used as a means to pay fees on the Matic sidechains, right? And apart from that, the biggest use case of Matic is in case validators need to come and participate in network security, they need to deposit, or what we call it, they need to stake Matic tokens in order to validate transactions on the sidechain, right? So those are the two major use cases of the Matic token as we've envisioned it. But at the same point in time, there are other ancillary use cases that we are trying to come up with, such as trying to give or burn a percentage of fees that has come on the Matic network in order to keep reducing the supply, right? And also developers will get a percentage of this fees. Developers who are trying to build infrastructure solutions on top of Matic, a percentage of these fees can be used to actually support developers who are building these projects, right? But at the same point in time, as of now, we're not currently actively exploring using Matic as a means of payment, right? As a means, like how you mentioned, using Matic to pay for retail. That is not in our immediate plans, because we want the token to be utilized, because in any proof of stake network, right, the security of the network depends on what percentage of the network tokens are staked to ensure security, right? So that there's not a one entity that controls more than 66% of the stake and can actually go ahead and take over the network, right? So we want our proof of stake layer to be more and more decentralized. We want more and more people to come and stake on the network to ensure that the network security is more robust, right? But that being said, I think once we've launched the network and once we've secured the side chains and we've got a lot of transaction volume that's happening on the side chains, I think probably after that we can look into the fact in case Matic tokens can be used for other use cases as well. But that's not an active area of focus. We can probably sit as a team and debate on how and why probably it will be good for the ecosystem, but that's not an active area of debate as of now.
Yeah, who is your, sorry for the interruption, who's your like ideal owner of Matic token right now? So presumably you could control in what hands they are. Who's the ideal one?
So the ideal users, the ideal holder of Matic tokens would be the users, first of all, who will have to pay for the fees on Matic sidechains in Matic tokens. Although we have ways and we are actually exploring so that these exchanges happen in the background and probably people do not need to touch Matic tokens directly, and the abstraction will happen in the background, and they can pay in any token, but the validators will get paid in Matic tokens after the tokens have been exchanged via some protocols. Yeah, that is how we envision it. But at the same point in time, other people who want to contribute to the network security and stake in the network to probably own.
What I was saying is that we are experimenting with a way of the viewers of the video, to get a hold of the tokens that are currently being discussed. So we actually, what we could do and what we have already done is that we airdrop a small amount of the token in question to the viewers of the video via a QR that's embedded and that they can scan with our wallet. So this is just another side question / proposal to you, is that we can motivate the users to explore the Matic network even further by owning a small fraction of it. So, well, actually at no cost to you.
I think it's a great idea, but the thing is, we need to look into the background and see whether it is feasible. I think I'll get back to you on this, but I think if it's possible, we should definitely do this. The thing is, people will be owning, we want people to own, as many people to own Matic tokens as possible, right? Because that is what will make the network decentralized in the first place. If you might be knowing, I think when we did our IEO on Binance Launchpad, we actually gave away a very huge portion of a very large percentage of the total token supply in the exchange sale, right? That again comes from the fact that we wanted as many users to hold Matic tokens in the first place. So we are always looking for ways to ensure that the tokens can reach and probably as many people can be aware and they can hold Matic tokens.
Yeah, I understand that. So in such things, especially when you are giving something away, it's crucial that they don't get misused and they don't end up in just one hand instead of thousands. So yeah, we can discuss it separately and we will get to you about that. I think the final funny questions that many of the viewers would like to know is that if they are an up-and-coming blockchain project who want to get on the Binance Launchpad, so I think what's your take? And I know how silly of a question that is what it takes. What do you think it takes to get on the Binance Launchpad? And what is the communication with Binance? Did you ever speak to CZ himself? What's the chain of command? What other non-confidential details you can give that might be useful for the project in the space?
So I think the most important thing, because we are currently in a bear market, right? At least specifically in the last year, right? So the most important thing is to not lose focus and keep on building, keep on shipping code, because that's the most important thing, to not stay in one place and keep progressing and building your product, right? I think that is what Matic team did. Even with the scarce amount of resources that we had at hand, we had a highly motivated team who was dedicated to the end goal of actually achieving scale for blockchains. So we kept on building irrespective of the fact how the markets were behaving. And I think that led to Binance catching an eye of Matic. So basically, they recognized this value. And then, as I mentioned, we had like extremely long discussions with them where they evaluated the project, where they actually deep dived into the code, where they actually figured out how we had even contributed to the open source ecosystem. So it's not just about having your eye on getting listed on Binance. I think what we did was always for the better of the ecosystem, right? We always contributed. We just never focused on, okay, just building our own product. As and when we could, whenever we had the bandwidth, we went ahead and contributed to a lot of open source projects, and we helped out a lot of teams as well. I think currently Dagger, which is Matic's tool, is being used by a lot of teams on the Ethereum platform. So I think the most important thing is to believe in what you're building and not to stop, irrespective of whatever is happening around you, right? Because the crypto markets can be extremely volatile. So you should just take your eyes off the price and just go heads down and keep building, right? And regarding the chain of command, I think Binance now, the team that we interacted with.
Very cool. Thank you very much for the talk, Siddhartha, and we will be in touch hopefully soon, discussing on how we can cooperate, what things we can build using both Paytomat and Matic. And thank you again for this talk. Of course, we will send you all the final versions of the video before publishing, so you will be able to approve it.
Sure. Thanks, Eugene. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Thanks a lot.
To probably connect with you very soon.